Right to this, a concerned parent says a high school library book is pornographic and she wants it removed. That book is Gilbert Hernandez's graphic novel, Palomar. Katrina Lopez says she noticed the content after her 15-year-old son brought it home from the Rio Rancho High School library last month. The book shows a girl beaten by her father, and Lopez says she marked several pages that she believes show explicit content.
Found more of the promotion of prostitution, the child pornography, child abuse, the sexual innuendos, the sexual scenes, the nudity in it.
This parent absolutely has the right to say, I don't want this book in my home, but she doesn't have that right to take that choice away from other parents.
Not everybody agrees with banning the book, as you can hear. Groups like the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund wrote the school district defending the book. They say it's an exploration of culture, identity, sexuality, and memory. Lopez says she's appealing the district's decision to keep that book in the library. We're following developing news this early hour. One person is dead, another is hurt after a crash in northwest Albuquerque. That happened just after 9:30 last night. The intersection of 72nd and Ladera is back open this morning. It was shut down after a motorcyclist hit a pedestrian. Police aren't saying much about who was killed in the crash. The names of those involved are not being released until family is notified. We're, of course, working to gather more information right now, and we'll update you as soon as that detail comes into our newsroom. 5:03, and a stretch of Paseo del Norte is back open in time for the morning commute after a dramatic crash. Police say a woman rolled her Jeep on the Paseo overpass near Coors, getting a wheel stuck over the cement barrier. According to officers, the driver was not wearing a seatbelt and was taken to the hospital. Her condition is unclear this morning. A male passenger did have a seatbelt on and did not need to go to the hospital. Police are still investigating the cause. Developing right now, police are searching for the shooter in a fight at Applebee's. Officers say an argument sparked between two bike gangs inside the restaurant at San Mateo and Academy Northeast. They then walked out to the parking lot where the fight continued.
You guys know if
Apparently there's an outlaw motorcycle gang. The Banditos arrived on scene while another club, motorcycle club, was here having a fundraiser. Words were exchanged, and both parties were involved in a gunfight out here in a parking lot.
Police say nobody's been cooperating with the investigation, making their job more difficult. The man who was shot was taken to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. A 14-month-old boy who deputies say was badly beaten earlier this week has died. Last week, police say they were called to UNM Hospital after that boy arrived with a brain bleed and bruises. The boy's mother, Carmina Vargas, and her two friends, Christopher Garcia and Lizzie Portillo, had both been charged with child abuse, or all been charged with child abuse. According to the criminal complaint, the suspect said the baby fell off the bed, but then Portillo shook him several minutes afterward. Deputies say the DA is aware and is expecting charges to change this week. Also developing this early hour, two bodies pulled from the rubble of a building explosion and collapse in New York City. Authorities believe they are the last two people still missing after the blast on Thursday. 23-year-old Nicholas Figueroa had been on a date inside a restaurant. 26-year-old Moises Lucan was an employee there. Two other people were injured. As for a cause, New York City's mayor says somebody may have improperly tapped a gas line before that explosion. Happening overnight, a 7.5 magnitude earthquake struck off the coast of Papua New Guinea, triggering a tsunami warning this morning. So far, there have been no reports of injuries or damage. The Tsunami Warning Center says the waves reached 3 to 10 feet are possible for Papua New Guinea's coastlines, so they're watching closely for that. And listen to this, a 4-year-old catches a bus in the middle of the night. Here's the surprising part. She just wanted a frozen treat. At nearly 3 a.m., a bus driver is warned about a little girl out alone, and moments later, that driver spotted her as the 38-inch tall strawberry blonde in a purple coat and snow boots hopped on the bus, and she had one thing in mind.
She had a mindset because I knew what she wanted, you know.
what did you want?
All I want is a slushie. That's all she said.
That's all she wanted. Police were called, and within an hour, the little girl was back home. Her parents say slushies are her favorite treat, and they have since replaced the locks at their house. Try to keep her in, maybe. Indiana's governor was standing by his decision to sign a so-called religious freedom bill into law. That's coming despite national backlash.
This bill is not about discrimination. And if I thought it legalized discrimination in any way, I would have vetoed it.
Here's what the law says. It says businesses have the right to refuse service to customers based on religious beliefs. It's something that critics say could leave room for discrimination.
The signing of this bill doesn't seem like it's a step in the direction of equality and justice and liberty for all Americans.
Many major corporations are also threatening to do business elsewhere. Apple CEO Tim Cook slammed the law on Twitter, and Angie's List has canceled plans for a proposed $40 million expansion project in Indianapolis. Raped and left in a field. One first this morning. It's been 1 year since protests erupted over the shooting death of homeless camper James Boyd.
Get back, please. Let's get back. I have a right to film you. You gotta get out of my face. I'm not in your face, sir. You're a public servant. I'm on public property.
After almost 10 hours of protesting, Albuquerque police deployed tear gas and started arresting people. APD avoided using force most of the day, but into the night, they say things got a little more rough. Police say some of the tactics were necessary because at least one protester showed up armed. Protesters at the time blocked traffic, vandalizing a Nob Hill substation at one point. Someone even climbed a street light. Protesters seemed lost at moments.
I'm as confused as you guys are. I'm not so sure that this is going in the right direction anymore.
Weeks later, the U.S. Department of Justice released a report outlining a pattern of excessive force by APD officers and told the city to make some big changes. DA Carrie Brandenburg recently pressed murder charges in Boyd's death against officers Keith Sandy and Dominique Perez. Protests against police brutality have happened across the nation since. In Ferguson, as demonstrators protested for weeks over the shooting death of Michael Brown, the black teenager shot and killed by a white officer. The grand jury's decision not to indict the officer sparked protests in Albuquerque. There were also protests in New York over the chokehold that led to the death of Eric Garner. The officer in that case was cleared of wrongdoing. We're staying on top this morning of the aftermath of a brawl on the field at the home opener of New Mexico's new arena football team. The Gladiators faced the Mexico All-Star team Saturday night, and with less than a minute 30 left in the first half, a huge fight broke out between the teams. Injuries included a bitten ear, broken nose, even a broken cheekbone. The refs ejected 3 Mexico players, leaving that team without enough players to play. After a long wait, Mexico was forced to forfeit. One fan says he wasn't upset about the fight, but with how little those in the stands were told about it all.
I felt slighted that they announced there would be a second half, and I sat there for a half hour waiting for that, and it never came.
On its Facebook page, the team apologized and said that they would make it up to fans, but they didn't say how. Gladiators managing partner Matthew Kayward says he hopes to have some kind of giveaway. The team's next game is coming up on Saturday. In just 1 year, it helped more than 700 students and 150 families. But even with its success, APS's Drug Intervention and Prevention Program faces the chopping block nearly every single year. News 13's Catherine Mazzone tells us why funding the Crossroads program is such an ongoing struggle.
You'd have a tough time picking him out of a crowd, but this ordinary high schooler has a secret.
I started using glue or whatever.
We're calling this student John to protect his anonymity. He says sniffing glue turned to using heroin. He dropped out of school, but not before finding a confidant in his Crossroads counselor.
She really helped me out, like with getting back into school and everything.
She also suggested treatment. After a short stint, John was back on his feet and back in school.
I don't even smoke cigarettes anymore.
There are many more like John, students who got the help they needed from Crossroads, an APS program dedicated to drug intervention and prevention. According to the National Institute of Health, more than 27% of students have done an illicit drug in the past year.
Do you think that these counselors save lives?
Yes, I definitely do.
Crossroads manager Susan McKee says the program's effective because of the relationship students build with their counselors.
The more that the Crossroads counselor is visible and is known as a confidential person on the campus, that can keep their mouth shut, then the kids will go to them.
But staying visible can be difficult.
The student may go to the door and say, well, I mean, it must not be that, that important if they're not here all the time.
7 counselors must divide their time among 13 schools. Fact is, the funds aren't guaranteed.
There's a question. Are we going to be around next year?
I really think that we need to find the way any way within our own budget, our operational budget, to make that a part of a sustainable program.
Dr. Annalie Maestas says the administration is trying to find the resources to fully fund the program. But with the $20 million budget shortfall, there's no quick and easy solution. Yet, for the sake of students like John, those involved with the program say it can't come soon enough.
It was like very helpful because if I didn't go to treatment, then I would have, I think, kept on using it.
Catherine Mazzone, KRQE News 13.
Once they do have dependable funding for the high school program, organizers hope they can expand Crossroads into the middle schools. They say that way they could focus more on drug prevention. A stretch of the Bosque is cleaner this morning thanks to some dedicated volunteers. Metro Rotary Club spent Sunday morning picking up trash near a Bosque trail that's that's by the Old Town Farm. Members of the club say they're cleaning up after people who threw out trash while on the I-40 overpass. The group says the cleaning project is important to make the city beautiful. The city picks up, by the way, all of the bags of trash that have been collected. 5:37, New Mexico health officials are trying to warn people about just how bad the flu season is right now, and they say it's not over yet. The Department of Health says the virus has hospitalized about 40 people out of every 100,000 this flu season. That's up from 29 per 100,000 2 years ago. One New Mexico child and 27 adults have died from flu-related complications since the start of this season. A firefighter in California is in the hospital with some pretty serious injuries after a terrible accident on the job, and it was all caught on video. That tape shows the firefighter on the roof of a burning home. Here he comes. Watch what happens. He suddenly falls right through. The Fresno Bee reports that it took several Good Samaritans and fellow firefighters to get him out. He was taken to the hospital for second and third degree burns. Terrible stuff. A news crew in San Diego captured a woman passed out in her car, but it happened on a busy freeway. Dozens of cars were just zipping by her. According to KGTV, the woman was drunk and passed out behind the wheel. The news crew called 911 and California Highway Patrol arrested her. When she got out, the camera crew says it spotted an empty vodka bottle in that car.